Well, today we're going to have a little friendly debate about the source of the virus, the Wuhan lab virus, so to speak. Clayton Baker is in here, has written this book, which I recommend most highly. It's published by the Brownstone Institute, and I really enjoyed reading it. We're going to talk about that. He's a colleague, and it was interesting watching his thinking unfold in real time on this book. That's the way I felt it kind of plays itself out. And we're having Dr. Li-Meng Yan back again. She can be followed on X, DrLimengyan1. Dr. Li-Meng Yan 1. She has been a very outspoken critic of the Wuhan lab and the source of the virus. And she was someone who was a virologist and a physician and worked in a biolab in Hong Kong and started raising questions about this very virus. And was threatened with being disappeared. And then she did disappear, but she reemerged here, and we have the great privilege of talking to her right after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. So, as I said, I'll have my colleague Clayton Baker in here in a second. He's an internist, and he was a teacher of internal medicine, as I was myself. And I want to hear his thoughts as they unfolded. You can find it in this book. I recommend it most highly, The Medical Masquerade. But first, I want to talk to Dr. Li-Meng Yan. You can follow her on X, DrLimengyan1. Dr. Yan, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Dr. Drew. Nice to see you again.
Great to see you as well. So you were a virologist, you were a physician, you did medicine, straight medicine, you did ophthalmology, you got a PhD in ophthalmology, then you started working in a virology lab in Hong Kong. And give people a brief sketch of what happened to you there.
Okay, so briefly, I finished my PhD and MD training in China. I gained the medical doctor license in China, and then I pursued the better academic career. So I moved to the University of Hong Kong. And after that, I became the postdoc fellow in the top 1, ranked by Elsevier, the top 1 coronavirus lab in the world. The lab I worked in WHO reference lab in School of Public Health of University of Hong Kong. And then since the end of 2019, I was secretly appointed by my supervisors, the WHO expert Dr. Li-Meng to secretly investigate what happened in Wuhan through my own network. So my network involved from China CDC headquarters office, George Fugou's team, to the Wuhan labs, to the Wuhan hospitals, to military labs. So very quickly, the feedback I got is WHO actually was cheated initially and then later corrupted with China to cover up what happened in Wuhan. And the coronavirus, which caused the pandemic later, was not from the nature, was not caused by accident in the lab. In fact, it was caused by the military-civil fusion Chinese covert program of unrestricted bioweapons, and it was intentionally get out of the lab and released into the community in Wuhan to infect certain people and later cause the out of control and the outbreak.
So I have a couple questions. So you were, if I recall correctly, you were working on the coronavirus backbone that was eventually the same virus as in Wuhan, which is why you were selected to ask questions, correct?
No, I didn't touch the backbone, and I didn't work on the COVID-19 virus until it was released and caused the outbreak. But from my knowledge and my network and intelligence I got, I quickly identify that the backbone was coming from the military lab in Nanjing Command. It was discovered and uniquely owned by People's Liberation Army from Zhoushan Islands. And it's called Zhoushan Bat coronavirus ZC45 and another twin-like coronavirus ZXC21. Only Chinese military have these backbones.
So your opinion was the work in North Carolina by Dr. Daszak did not have a direct relationship with what went on in Wuhan. Is that accurate?
We need to define direct. The first thing is China is a dictator country and it's a communist country, so they don't trust the foreigners, especially if they are not the international communists. So people like Ralph Baric, most likely, if they are not international communists, then they are useful idiots. And secondly, these people like Ralph Baric or Peter Daszak, they helped Chinese government to discover developed this kind of gain of function weaponized virus because they can see the technology and also the collaborations between them and the Chinese military civil labs. But because they are not allowed to touch the core part in the program, so they are used more likely to spread misinformation, cover up, and gain their own benefits.
And before I bring Dr. Baker in, which I will in just a second, just one last thing I want to get clear on your history. I thought I remembered that when you looked into your network and you started evaluating what was going on in Wuhan, you started asking questions that were troubling, and they then called you off essentially and said, hey, if you don't stop, you're going to be disappeared. Tell us that piece of the story.
Actually, even before I start this investigation, the first day, my boss, Dr. Li-Meng, told me this mission. He told me face-to-face in his office that it was December 31st, 2019. You need to be careful. Don't touch the red line. If you cross the red line, if you don't keep silence, you will be disappeared and no one can help you. So my boss, Li-Meng, has involved in the SARS-1 in 2003. That investigation becomes a world-known expert. So he knows what he was talking to me. And after that, I was repeatedly warned by Li-Meng and also actually by other bosses like Malik Paris in my team through my husband, and also from that time to now on, since I have become the whistleblower, I'm under the continuous fox hunting operation conducted by the Chinese Communist Party.
You dropped something in there. I'm not sure we all knew what that meant. What is a fox hunting?
Basically, China called that is an operation, transnational operation to hunt the fox, which are their target. They claim these are the criminals, like corrupted people. But
is that you?
More likely, they use it to target the dissident. So I am their target, one of the top target.
You're the fox. And I remember back in the day, you were starting to talk to the FBI and other organizations. Have you been able to effectively download what you know to the U.S. government?
I have collaborated with FBI since the moment I entered the United States in Los Angeles airport because they stopped me and also DHS involved. So I gave them my evidence. And that's why later FBI ex-director Ray admitted that FBI thinks that gain of function lab origin is credible. And also I was evaluated by FBI as high credibility. And so that's why I went to the Freedom Caucus and the Congress did my testimony in 2021.
Got it. All right. Now I want to switch, if you don't mind, if you'd sit tight. Thank you for that history. I want to talk to Dr. Clayton Baker, who is the other perspective on all this. And Dr. Baker, I thought you'd find that all very interesting. I don't know if you've heard Li-Meng's point of view before. But before we go into your, if you don't mind, into your counterpoint, tell us about the book, because I really did love this.
Oh, thank you very much, Drew. It's really nice of you to give me the shameless plug. So the book, Medical Masquerade, is a collection of the essays I wrote from the beginning of the COVID era until almost the present. And I did a lot of my writing for Brownstone Institute, and they were kind enough to help me compile that and annotate it in places and put it out as a volume. So as you said, it number one kind of has an element of evolution of thought, but also has a variety of different topics relevant to COVID and the abuses thereof over time. Yeah. So hopefully people will find it worthwhile, and it's really something I'm grateful to have out there.
As I was reading it, I think there's historical significance here because it is a primary document. You know what I mean? It was somebody living it at the moment to moment, and somebody with some insight and some knowledge. And I thought, oh, this is going to be an important thing. So let's just frame who you are for a second. You're an internist. You're the same as me. You're American Board of Internal Medicine certified. You taught medicine at University of Rochester. I taught medicine through USC for a long time. I ended up teaching psychiatry through the addiction thing eventually, but I taught medicine for many, many years also. And were you ever an outlier in your opinions relative to your peers? Were you ever somebody that needed to be sanctioned or disciplined in any way prior to the COVID era?
No, I was pretty traditional, really. I was always a bit independent-minded, but very traditional overall.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm imagining that never, because I could see your thinking and I could intuit your training and point of view and stuff. And I thought, okay, I understand this guy.
Trouble-free record and pretty straightforward, very traditional views. I was never sent to a re-education camp at any time. Until.
So you started putting essays. How did your peers react to all that?
Well, I first got into the whole COVID kerfuffle very early on, more to do with the school closures. I had 3 kids in school at the time, and I saw immediately just how egregious the whole school closure situation was, and just how the kids were being just systematically victimized, at a sort of industrial scale. And thinking who it is, Robert Zweig or someone has put out a book just now, An Abundance of Caution, which is a great new book about all the school closures and the harms that came from that. But anyway, that was how I cut my teeth in this. And I was one of the people at the school board meetings. As a physician, I was in high demand because nobody else would say anything where I was, trying to say, they're not doing this in other countries. They're having no problems. COVID ignores children. You got to get the schools open. It was really just banging my head against the wall.
But the teachers, and we need plexiglass, and the teachers, and we need gloves, and we need plexiglass. These insane things that were said. I mean, I hope people understand they were hysteria, insane, delusional, way outer space, as opposed to listening to a skilled internist with years of experience going, you weren't saying, in everybody and go ahead and get COVID. You were saying, let's be more targeted with what we're doing here. We're going to end up hurting people, which they did.
Right. And it was terrible. I mean, the toll is still there for a lot of the kids, and now,
for sure.
We have this terrible mental health issue. We have these terrible learning losses. We have this whole generational problem aside from the vaccine toxicity. And, it's the notion that this was what did it, or the notion that there's some lesson to be learned just seems to escape people, just like the insanity of the whole process while it was taking place escaped them.
All right, so let's respond to Li-Meng Yuan's point of view here. She is somebody who was on the ground in China. She has a very specific point of view because of her experience and because of her trauma of being told that she will disappear if she continues to ask questions. We're bringing all three of us are on the screen now. Go ahead and give me your case for it coming out of North Carolina.
Well, I would say two things. Number one, I would say that there's a ton of blame to go around. So I would be disinclined to put all the blame in one court. I think that in terms of the release and exactly what happened on the ground in Wuhan, I don't call into question anything that Dr. Li-Meng is saying. And incidentally, it's very nice to meet you. I've seen you before, and I admire your courage and so on. So thank you. I would say that there's a long trail, though, a long paper trail, a long money trail that goes back through NIAID, that goes through Ralph Barrick's lab, that goes through the Rocky Mountain lab with Vincent Munster, and that, of course, goes through with Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance, that goes back probably to like 2004, 2005. And so I think that they're dangerous people, and I think they may have been played to a certain extent by the Chinese authorities, but I think that they're more than useful idiots. I think that there was deliberate nature of the work that they were doing. For me, the smoking gun in the paper trail is that defuse trial, which of course was the 2018 proposal that was sent to, I think it was sent to DARPA and was refused by DARPA, by Barrick and a number of other people. And what they were looking to do was to collaborate with the Chinese, including Dr. Xi, to aerosolize coronavirus vaccines that they could administer to bats, at least ostensibly. Now, technically, DARPA turned down that requested grant, but there's some evidence that people have put out. A lot of it's on Substack right now. People like Will Jones and Jim Haslam, that Barrick and Munster may have gone ahead with this research anyway, and that this was a large part of what may have contributed to the final product virus that was the one that was deployed in Wuhan in late 2019.
And Dr. Baker, I think it was, before you finish that thought, I think it was your book where I was first exposed to what happened at that Rocky Mountain lab. And I always thought that the notion of Lyme disease being maybe, I'm not sure if it was your book or not, but I read something about what they were doing at that lab and how they named the organism that causes Lyme after the guy in the lab there in Montana. Yeah, I was like, what? They actually named it after him? So then I started thinking, I always thought that was a crazy conspiracy theory. And then I thought, oh my God, the earth is flat. Oh Christ. Oh damn.
Yeah, just to clarify,
was that in your book?
That's Willie Bergdorfer, Dr. Drew.
Yeah.
And that was at the Plum Island lab in Long Island. And that's where they were working on weaponizing Borrelia burgdorferi, which, as you know, is the spirochete that causes Lyme disease. And they were weaponizing ticks to supposedly infect the Russian livestock. And the overwhelming evidence is that those ticks got out and got across Long Island Sound. If you look on the map right across Long Island Sound, you've got Lyme, Connecticut. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
But then later
Yeah,
on,
it's right there. And I, by the way, I wasn't paying attention. I always thought about Borrelia burgdorferi as a rickettsial thing, but it's really not. Which is because it doesn't behave like a Borrelia. It behaves like a rickettsial illness.
Exactly.
Weird.
And the other thing that I was doing a little bit of background reading on that again in preparation for today's talk, and I realized that there's actually a school of thought that's very concerned that a lot of the Lyme symptoms that, because there is this long, complicated tertiary Lyme kind of syndrome that a lot of people suffer from.
Yeah.
It may be really due more to babesiosis and Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which they were also supposedly monkeying around with in that lab at the same time. So it may be sort of a hodgepodge of things that people sometimes are afflicted with when they get these deer tick bites. So just crazy stuff. And I would just say this is circumstantial evidence to be sure, but this is just one more example of the United States government, the United States military has a long and deplorable history of weapons research going back to World War II. And, a lot of these terrible things that have happened, RSV, Lyme, as we discussed, both are basically lab accidents or lab leaks from the United States military. So we have a proud history of afflicting the world with terrible illnesses due to our fooling around with pathogens.
All right. I want to give Dr. Yan a chance to respond to all this. Let's start with spreading the responsibility around and how you understand the people on this continent and what their contributions are to what happened in China.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zhu, and nice to meet you, Dr. Baker. So yes, I know you mentioned the DARPA's that rejected project from 2018. Actually, I have talked to many people who, including the initial discovered this document, those people who are working on investigation of COVID-19 origin. I can tell you, these are the facts. But these facts doesn't change another fact, that is China is dominant behind all this weaponized program using coronavirus and release the COVID-19 to cause the pandemic, because the DARPA thing actually is just the one part of the COVID-19 development program. And I can tell you, I'm the first whistleblower talking about people involved in that DARPA and other NIH-funded grants have the military background in China, like Dr. Lan Yingdu and Jiang Shibo, and also Fang Li from the Minnesota University, and also their useful ideas collaborators like Peter Daszak and also the Ralph Baric, all these people. And the DARPA basically tell people affect the DARPA project. That is, so these scientists try to deny any possibility of gain of function in the COVID-19 virus. But in their own proposal, they told the government that they could make the furin cleavage site into the coronavirus to enhance the infection and also this kind of capacity of the virus to infect people. However, in the COVID-19 virus, let's go back to what came out from Wuhan in 2019. The first sequence released by Chinese government through the database, the gene bank in NIH, has shown the, I would say, the fingerprint of this virus. So that tell us, the fingerprint tell us who's the killer in the crime scene. So in this unrestricted warfare using the unrestricted bioweapon in this crime scene, the fingerprint is the backbone of the COVID-19 virus. So that is, go back to what I just mentioned, JC45 and the twin strain JXC21, uniquely discovered and owned by People's Liberation Army from 2015 to 2017. And at that time, remember, DARPA hasn't received that proposal yet. And why they are the backbone? Because in the Yan reports, I published the 3 Yan reports from September 2020 to March 2021. No one until now can reject any evidence in the Yang reports, I can tell you. And also I have presented the evidence, the scientific evidence, why more than furin cleavage site was engineered in the COVID-19 virus. Actually, even the well-known some Yunnan bat RATG13 from Wuhan lab are fabricated. The other fabricated coronavirus, COVID-like bat virus, pangolin virus, they are all published after Wuhan outbreak. And more accurately, after I revealed ZC45 as the real backbone of COVID-19 virus through the media on YouTube in Chinese on 19th January 2020. So briefly, the ZC45 show you the fingerprint of the killers, and that is only China, the People's Liberation Army with the Communist China government can do this. And the technology, yes, some of them come from US. Some money come from US taxpayers. Some people work with them. But you should know that one fact, since 40 years ago, China established a diplomatic relationship with US. That's the moment China started to grow up, right? So basically now we are talking about anything. You can see that, it comes from US, right? Fentanyl, all this knowledge and technology, they may learn it from US, but they use it to produce the fentanyl precursor and kill Americans. We are talking about cyber attack from China government attacking US. They learn this technology. They even get their people trained in the US, and then they steal your intellectual properties, and then they attack you. You can't say that's US attacking US.
I think, yes. And I think we learned recently how they're manipulating students at Stanford, and they're probably doing that at other major institutions for this very ends. But I don't think you appreciate how shocking it is to the United States citizens that we were a part of this. It is shocking to us. And so when you say they were useful idiots, it's like we're still like, what? We were involved in this? And what the hell? And why didn't Fauci tell us? And we expect transparency. And we don't expect all this intrigue and lying and bullshitting and money going in various directions, and then that they fell for the Chinese government's bullshit is equally as shocking to us. I feel like that so much of the pandemic was about our useful idiots, so as you see them, and we see them as trusted experts falling victim to people who are being manipulated by the People's Liberation Army. I have to take a break here, but two things I wanted before I go to break. One, this is what physician debate looked like before COVID. After COVID, it became doctors yelling at each other. It's one of the shocking pieces of the chapter of COVID. But doctors before that, we just sit and share ideas and debate, and maybe we get a little heated about our opinions. But after COVID, it became you're a bad person if you have an opinion different than mine, or if you don't believe in the zoonotic source of COVID, you're a conspiracy theorist. Something wrong with you. You're sick. You have to lose your license. Think about how different that is than this discourse the three of us are having here today. And before I go to break, one last little thing. I want to talk a little about long COVID when we get back. But any amongst us, the three of us, concerned about the NB1.8.1? Anybody concerned about that? It's on the front page of the New York Post today. The press is making a meal of this. Any of the three of us concerned about it?
Talk about it after the break.
Should we be panicky about it? All right, hold your thoughts. We're going to talk about it after the break because Susan wants me to use that as a tease. So I will do so right after this. Be right back with my guests. The Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and that's why they're constantly innovating to deliver the products and services to help you be rationally ready. Be sure to have the medical kit for kids on hand, whether you're a parent or grandparent. It treats 20 childhood conditions, including nausea and vomiting, allergies, asthma, inflammatory illnesses, even bioterror, God forbid. Listen, croup, ear infections, lice, it's all available in the pediatric emergency kit. You can also order the kids kit with an EpiPen should your child be at risk of anaphylaxis. And those EpiPens are carefully sourced and well priced relative to other EpiPens in the market. All 7 kits, each customized for a different purpose, come with a telemedicine consultation and a guidebook. Skip the scramble to an urgent care waiting room full of sick people and expense, or a pharmacy where there's no guarantee they'll have what you need. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off any medical emergency kit or the supplements for that matter. That again is drdrew.com/TWC. Well, you've heard me praise Paleo Valley's grass-fed finished beef bone broth and the delicious meat sticks. I now want to turn it over to Paleo Valley founder and CEO, Autumn Smith, to tell you about her company's food philosophy.
I'm here to help create the products that make healthy food convenient in our modern world. The diet and the food you're consuming is absolutely related to your digestive health, to your mental health, to every aspect of your health. The devil's in the details here. And not only do we have to attend to every single ingredient, we have to support a system with whole foods. And so when we source a product, it's going to be organic, it's going to be tested for pesticides, and then it's going to be grass-fed and finished or pasture-raised. It's going to be raised on regenerative American farms.
The protein sticks that come in 8 varieties are likewise impeccably sourced and prepared.
And the fermentation process came about because there was an ingredient that I didn't like in meat sticks that's pretty widespread. It's called encapsulated citric acid, and it's derived from GMOs and then hydrogenated oil, and it just melts into the beef stick, and you don't have to label it. That's the thing. You can label it citric acid. Make
2025 a year to cut out the chemicals and feed yourself correctly. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off your first order, 20% off when you subscribe. That is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley.
I ain't Dr. Drew.
Dr. Drew. You want to spend the whole session talking about Dr. Drew?
There you go. Even you call him Dr. Drew.
Love seeing my buddy Jim Jeffries. All right, this weekend, guess what? We hung out with our baby granddaughter again. Eloise, and her parents were there too, but there she is. Eloise has become our family's new spokesmodel for active skin repair. She loves the stuff. It's a product no household should be without. It is a novel formulation that soothes and heals irritated skin and wounds. The key ingredient is hypochlorous acid. It's been used in hospitals forever. It's a clinically proven antimicrobial. And active skin repair comes in hydrogel or spray and in 3 strengths, baby, kids, adults. Speaking of adults, I use the hyaluronic hydrating serum. It's the only hydrating thing. Yeah, it's over here, yes. The only hydrating serum I can use, period. And I was resistant, and then I loved it. I misplaced it in my luggage, which happened last month while we were traveling, and I was in a big panic about it because I was in the sun and getting messed up skin. So since this, anyway, it's helped me greatly when I've gotten back. This product holds 1,000 times its weight in water. Imagine what it can do for your skin. Go to drdrew.com/skin repair for 20% off what's already a great price. That is drdrew.com/skin repair for 20% off. Bring my guest back in, Dr. Li-Meng Yan and Dr. Clayton Baker. Dr. Baker's book, who again I recommend through the Brownstone Institute. It's called The Medical Masquerade. It is a historically significant document. If you want to know what those of us that were physicians who were trying to struggle with what was happening in our brain, pretty much examine what Dr. Baker went through, and most of us that were awake during the COVID debacle were thinking along the way. I don't know if I gave you Dr. Baker's at CJ Baker MD BAKER on X, and also you can find his stuff at brownstone.org. And I said Dr. Meng-Yan, DRLIMENGYAN 1 on X, and I'll answer the NB1.8.1. There will be variants of COVID. Some will be nastier than others. Some are the one. I'm sure this new one, I happen to believe very strongly, it was first detected. They led it back to China, but it was detected on this continent at the LAX airport. And I noticed about 6 weeks ago, I was seeing a nasty variant move around this area, and I'm sure it was the NB1.8.1.
Is that the one we got in DC?
It's the one that It might have been that one. It's definitely the one that Douglas got.
Because we got it really fast.
And I've used a little bit of Paxlovid. I know you guys don't like Paxlovid. And there's been a significant rebound for people like whom I did treat with Paxlovid. There's a very characteristic rebound, which I've not seen in about 3 years, which is this nasty cough that comes back about a week later. But that's, we can argue about whether Paxlovid is a good thing or not. Sir, my thing about Paxlovid is, why are we even talking about vaccines since we have a good antiviral therapy around?
Our granddaughter was in the house and she just got a little sniffly nose.
That's right. It didn't bother her very much at
4
all.
months old.
But everybody in the house got COVID, including her, for sure. Okay, so here we are. We are back. We're talking about the sources of the virus. Dr. Li-Meng gave a good firsthand account of what happened to her. Now, here is what Susan asked me during the break, and I'm going to ask you this question. You've always maintained that it was an intentional release, and maybe even 2 intentional releases. You said Omicron may have been the second release. For those of us over here, it's impossible to get our head around that. We just sort of dismiss it outright. Well, why would the government that's designed to help the people of China want to hurt the people of China? How is that possible? We cannot, I know personally I struggle with it, and I take you at your word, but I can't get my head around it, and most people can't get close to getting their head around it. So what do you tell people in this country to help them understand why a government would do something like that?
So yes, Dr. Drew, actually, I was shocked. Even when I came to the U.S. initially, I see the big obstacles. I was even censored in the U.S. So that shocked me too. But when we talk about U.S. government and Chinese government, we need to separate because there are totally different regime structure. So back to China, there is always the communist China government. And when we talk about U.S., we have initially 2020, the first Trump term and then Biden term, and now the second Trump term. So things definitely different in the U.S. between different administrations. And the thing is, I see people said, why is not U.S. and China work together on the this bioweapons, suppress people, and why should China be blamed as the dominant? Because when we talk about these criminals who committed this anti-human crime, the historic pandemic, we need to talk about different government structure. Back to China, if we want to clean these criminals, if we want to understand what happened, we want to hold the criminals accountable and prevent future such bio attacks and unrestricted warfare to harm us, you have no way unless you end that regime from the dictator to the lineage, the communist structure. However, when we talk about in the U.S., we can, even in the U.S., you can do the hearing testimony against Dr. Fauci and Dr. Peter Daszak, Ralph Baric. These people, you could do the investigation, though they have their people help them to cover up, to protect them. But still, we see after 5 years in the U.S., we can manage to say the truth. But back to China, no way. They don't allow you to go there to do any investigation. And they even try to kill me, the whistleblower overseas in the U.S. So the thing is, we can talk about this in the U.S. openly like now on because the difference between China and the U.S. So
but
when we talk
hang
about...
on,
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you. I think you have to help us understand more about, again, how we still are like, well, how's it possible? I think that you have to educate us a little bit about the nature of communism and totalitarianism, which is that the only thing that matters, there's no ethic, there's no morality other than the survival of the communist regime, right? Nothing else exists. If it's good for the survival of the regime, it's good, period. No matter who gets hurt, no matter how they get hurt. And that's, I think, what we have trouble getting our head around, particularly since I keep hearing that one of the great strategic problems for the Chinese government is preventing unrest and unhappiness, or people sort of realizing that they're under the thumb of this kind of government we're describing here. how do we reconcile this with, again, a conscious release? I can't quite do it.
Okay, so I say we need to understand what's bioweapon, and also even it's a low death rate, but high transmissibility, the COVID-19, this kind of non-traditional bioweapon, right? What does it mean for Chinese Communist Party? In their own documents, they described bioweapon and also the propaganda as the poor man's nuclear weapons. You see, because they don't have the equal powerful nuclear weapons as the US, so they develop bioweapons and using their cognitive warfare to defeat you. So that's their motives. They need to defeat you. They need to destroy you and control you. And the communist regime never care about individuals or human natures. So that is totally an anti-human regime. Basically, when they talk about the party, that means this party, Communist Party, trained people. Either you're silent, you are obedient like the sheep, and they can do whatever to you, or you are part of the party, but they will train you to gain the party nature to replace your human nature. So then you become a true.
See,
and
that's where we can't get our head around it. It's so foreign. Those ideas are so anathema to Western and particularly American sort of ideas. I need to switch over to Dr. Baker quickly again, if you don't mind. And I think, Dr. Baker, you get kind of what I'm going at here. But what I came away from this whole experience with is centralization is the biggest problem of all. Any centralized authority, the more centralized, the more authority is given, the worse it gets. Is absolute power corrupts, absolutely. But we saw gradations of it. And even Dr. Li-Meng just said she was amazed that she was censored by the U.S. government. You and I were censored too. What did you come away with yourself in terms of what was done to you, in terms of your understanding about our own government, let alone what Li-Meng is telling us about the Communist Party?
Yeah, the lesson I took away in terms of our government from COVID was how dangerously close we came to what Dr. Li-Meng is describing over in China. Now, there was more than one person who expressed admiration in our public health superstructure during COVID about the ability of the Chinese to simply lock down society 100%. Mm-hmm. The notion of civil rights, the notion of civil liberties seemed to be null and void. I think we came very dangerously close to heading in that direction. And I think that's a real lesson. We don't have we have checks and balances in our country, but I think that we came very dangerously close to losing a lot of those. When you saw the degree of censorship that we underwent in the social media world, we were marginalized. I mean, I was absolutely marginalized in terms of being able to get a message out to people. I had two friends who were arrested during COVID for protesting the masking and social distancing in the schools in upstate New York. Two of them. One of them for not wearing the mask properly at a school board meeting, and one for not wearing a mask at a baseball game outdoors and refusing to put one on.
Oh, my God.
So, we're really not that far away. I had a standoff with our superintendent, and a few other people, and he chose to cancel the meeting rather than have us arrested. This is in Rochester, New York. This isn't where you would think this type of stuff was going on, but it was going on. And so we were dangerously close to something very, very much like a sort of a softcore version of what Dr. Li-Meng describes and what she lived through in China. So I think that you have to be a little bit ungovernable after what we went through, and a little bit more unwilling to simply fall in line. I think that's an important lesson. I appreciate what she's saying, but as an American who operates under the notion that the Bill of Rights is in effect, how many parts of the Bill of Rights were just tossed out the window during the lockdowns? certainly to a large extent, the First Amendment was. And certainly freedom of worship, freedom of ability to assemble. This was really just torched, and we have to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, and we have a problem with our public health system in terms of its design, where it could happen again. We've got to get into that a little bit, and I don't see any movement in that direction just yet. But I hope. I mean, I know the brownstone is keeping the heat on, so I'm hoping that eventually they'll move it in that direction. But Dr. Baker, I wonder if you have any questions for Li-Meng or objections. I mean, we sort of put this together as a little mini debate. Are there things that you and she disagree on you'd like to ask her about?
Well, I think that I would defer to her on her knowledge of the Chinese Communist Party and what happened specifically in Wuhan. I would ask her, though, I think that there's more collaboration going on with people in the West with the Chinese than perhaps she appreciates. I know that when the event 201 took place in October of 2019, this was the tabletop exercise that Bill Gates ran and the WEF ran. Yeah, I think it was October 18th, 2019, the same day that the World Military Games were kicking off in Wuhan, and of course, sometime after the virus had been released. My understanding is George Gao, who's the head of the CDC in China, was at that meeting. Now, I'm sorry, there's something going on there, and there's a collusion going on there. If one of the leading people in the Chinese government, Chinese health department head, is at that meeting with people saying, how do we lock people down just in case there's a coronavirus outbreak?
I think I'll let Dr. Li-Meng answer in a question, but I feel we got hoodwinked. Our profession and science generally got hoodwinked. We were I remember I was involved with some research with people in China. We just got used to London, China, same thing, no big deal. It's all the same. It's the center of gravity is sort of over there, so we work with those people. We just weren't thinking about the government or what could happen with all this. But Li-Meng, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's very good questions, and I do agree with Dr. Baker that it was very dangerous, and the U.S. almost fall into the same level as CCP wanted to silence people and disappear people during the pandemic. So yeah, let's say first, I learned from this pandemic is that education and academic reputation doesn't. Cannot tell people that this person is not scumbag. So that is a fact. And they also could be the criminal, and they need to be held accountable. And when we talk about George Fugao, I have met him. And also when we talk about the One Health, this kind of international advocacy, transnational organization support to control the future pandemic or promote vaccines, I can tell you my ex-boss, Malik Paris, is the leading person in this One Health. That's why I know more than most of people in the world about these things from outside. So the thing is, let's talk back to China's bioweapon program and especially COVID-19. What happened in Wuhan was not a lab accident. I'm sure about that, and I have my intelligence about that. I can tell people first, according to my experience, I worked in biosafety level 3 labs using coronavirus. I can tell you both biosafety level 3 and 4 labs cannot cause the setting the lab animal or what kind of accident, but cause outbreak. It doesn't mean there was no accident. But without government's approval, they cannot cause outbreak like what happened in Wuhan. And the government won't cover it up for the lab. And also, they won't use it to cause the later pandemic. And then Xi Jinping called it as the West falls and the East rise. Also, when we talk about intelligence, back to the military games in Wuhan in October 2019, it was a very significant moment. Actually, we believe that very likely the outbreak in Wuhan started from that period. So our intelligence from Central Military Commission near Xi Jinping, the top military panel in China, told us that 1 month before the military games, China has held the military civil fusion exercises in Wuhan Tianhe International Airport. One of the two scenarios is to tell people there was some suspicious patient from outside to join the military game, and then when the person came to China in that airport, he was detected with new novel coronavirus and then get treated in Wuhan. So that was the scenario. Actually, our source told us before that exercise, the military has held the meeting, secret meeting, without known by the U.S. experts in Wuhan with the Wuhan Lab Institute of Virology. They're talking about whether they should use the real COVID-19 virus or some pseudovirus, which is a fake one, to infect the targets in the military exercise. Turns out, the general gave the decision with Xi Jinping's approval that using the real COVID-19 virus. That was the first recorded intelligence we know that China government allow people to bring this COVID-19 virus out of the lab and infect a human in the community, because the airport is the civil airport. Get the people infected because they want to see whether it could be under the control. So after the exercise, at the end of September 2019, China government announced the success of the military exercise in that airport. And then after 4 weeks, when they believed there was no other dangers and no risk, Xi Jinping came to Wuhan to join the opening ceremony of the military games. And according to the accounting based on epidemiology and other evidence, it's very likely the virus was again somehow come out in Wuhan from the end of October to early November in the community. And we also have other sources told us that the virus was intentionally released to target some athletes in the military games. And the China government thought it was under the control. However, because they underestimate the transmissibility of the virus, so finally it caused the Wuhan outbreak. And why they miscalculate the transmissibility? I am the first author published the Nature paper in May 2020 telling why they made the mistake, because they used the wrong animal model. So it was intentionally brought out of the lab and somehow caused the outbreak in Wuhan, but doesn't matter. Chinese government doesn't care about their own people. They think, okay, we could cover up. And since I reviewed it on 19th January, 3 days later, they locked down Wuhan, but they decided to use the opportunity to spread it all over the world. And I want to add the last thing is, great thing is we have President Trump at that time, and my message was delivered to President Trump through Peter Navarro, and then he launched the travel ban at the end of January 2020 to delay the pandemic in the U.S. and protected Americans.
Thank you, Dr. Li-Meng. That's a really interesting, sort of fills in a lot of the detail about that story, and it's kind of very interesting. Dr. Baker, our time here started running out a little bit. I want to switch gears very quickly to talk about long COVID, and I'm starting to get concerned about these observations about COVID knocking out or reducing efficacy or numbers of natural killer T cells. And that there's some theory that may be where some of the cancers are coming from, if indeed there is an increase in cancer. This makes this kind of an AIDS-like illness all of a sudden, and I'm just worried about that. Do you have any of those concerns? Oh, we lost your sound somewhere.
Sorry about
you may
that.
be muted.
Sorry about that.
There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the cancer situation as well. Personally, I think more of it is coming from long vax, if you will, than from long COVID. That's my personal feeling. I think that there's there's certainly potentially 2 or 3 or maybe more mechanisms by which the cancer increase that seems to be happening, that I think is happening, is being observed. One of them is, we do know that there were bad batches of the vaccine that had larger amounts of contaminated DNA in them, which was likely a part of the problem. I do think there is also a immunosuppressive effect, which a lot of people have hypothesized as well. And, as we all know, everyone knows that the immune system is there to destroy pathogens that are external to the body. But we're all learning now, as we all get a long, hard lesson in immunology and in physiology and pathophysiology through COVID, that it's also very important in identifying early cancers and removing them from the body. So I think that there is both immunosuppressive, possibly more than one immunosuppressive mechanism going on here, as well as the problem with the contaminated DNA, SV40 or otherwise, which we're seeing as well. So it's a very concerning thing. What I tell people is, look, if you got the shots, I don't recommend any more to my patients by any means. And if you're doing well, you're doing well. But if you are having symptoms, if you are finding that you have symptoms of long vax or long COVID, seek out one of the protocols. The Independent Medical Alliance, the old FLCCC has some good options for that.
Yeah, Dr. Yogendra has been on the show a number of times doing research on that. And Dr. Li-Meng, the people that I know that are doing research on long COVID do tell me off the record that most of the long syndromes they're seeing are long vax in point of fact. So 2 things for you. A, do you worry about what I was just describing, where the immune system is sort of permanently affected, or at least longer term affected in a way that is pernicious, number one? And number 2, I know you see the People's Liberation Army's fingerprint on everything. Do you think they had some role in the premature rollout of the vaccines and the persistence and the insistence on spike-producing vaccine therapies?
Yeah, first, we know that long COVID is really a problem, and I have talked about this kind of consequences from the beginning. And actually, why do they choose coronavirus? Because coronavirus has some nature, including the antibody-dependent enhancement, which means even though you have the antibody, still later when you see some different variant, you would get worse because of the existing antibodies. And also, when China develops the new bioweapons, they are selecting the candidates which could potentially cause neural damage. And of course, the immature mRNA vaccine and other vaccines against the COVID-19 cannot protect us, but they would cause unexpected problems. And yes, PLA's fingerprint is everywhere. For example, when we talk about Harvard University, I would tell you that now in China, the leading team who successfully predict the COVID-19 variant since 2020 until now, who are studying the immune escaping variant, and somehow they always can predict them in the reality. These are the team come back from Harvard University. Professor Sunny Xiaoliang Xie, the chemistry professor, and his student Richard Yunlong Cao, and Cao is the son of CCP's General Cao Xuetao, who's an immunologist and also notorious general in the bioweapon program. And also, when we talk about vaccines, we see China's agents everywhere. For example, Dr. Shan Wu, based in Massachusetts, who was the president of International Society of Vaccines, has very close ties with People's Liberation Army and the CCP. And the GSK vaccine director Pei Yongshi, who is involved into the development of COVID-19 virus with Chinese government with PLA background. So yes, they're everywhere. And I'm so happy to say that now at least the U.S. government don't recommend kid and pregnant lady to get these vaccines, and also U.S. withdraw from WHO, and they're building the new alternative health system with Argentina now.
Yes, I agree. It is a relief that's ending, and I'm fascinated by what you've just told us. I do hope the FBI and the other government organizations are listening to you and listening to this. I feel like we've sort of run the cycle, as they say. Like we've really covered this. It's interesting to me that, you know, I think I've spoken to both of you over the last few years, or at least I feel like I've talked to you, Clayton. And
oh yeah,
and it's interesting to see how this has evolved and become a more complete story. And it's all stuff we all sensed at the beginning, right? We were all like, well, something's wrong. Something is really wrong here. This isn't right. Something is, and there's still more to be revealed, I'm sorry to say. And hopefully there will be further acceptance and allowance for the sort of investigative process to go forward so we can figure out what happened to us in great detail. I appreciate you both being here. Is there last comments from either of you before I wrap this up? I feel like like I said, we ran the cycle.
I would just say thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to always to talk with you, Dr. Drew. Pleasure to meet you, Dr. Yan. And I just think, honestly, I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I appreciate the concern about the CCP, and I don't question that in the least. But I think there's a lot of bad actors that we still need to see some accountability in the United States. One thing I learned from COVID was, you know, people, the old adage that you never assume malice when incompetence explains behavior, I think is cover for a lot of malice. And I think that that's something we have to be very careful to be aware of.
It's what my friend Adam Carolla calls stupid or liar. Stupid or liar, which is it? Or both. I think a lot of them are both. So we'll find out. Dr. Li-Meng, last words?
I have one
Susan.
question for her. Well, just a comment, because Dr. Yan mentioned it really quickly. She mentioned, you know, the asymmetrical warfare or the poor man's nuclear bomb or whatever. Mm-hmm. But also she kind of slid in there the propaganda. And so the biggest thing that I found, like maybe my spidey sense was up because of all the propaganda that was coming out of China. Like a lot of our media was picking up on stuff that China was sending. And like, for example, today, the New York Post says, we have this horrible disease coming. It's going to kill everybody, because those are the people that pick up these stories. But then it gets sort of propagandized through China. Like we were duplicitous in the propaganda, and we were hysterical, both. Yeah.
And there was political motivation based in a malicious, back to malice, a malicious posture.
But that we still have.
It was a perfect storm of all that.
We had this sort of feeling of communism looming over us during the pandemic.
Yes.
But we still have the propaganda. We still have these shitty media sources and these people who just keep saying stuff, you know, to get clicks.
Maybe the PLA's in there with those guys too. We'll have to find out.
Sure.
I need my Li-Meng in the media.
She's shaking her head.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
And you're right.
Oh, yes, Susan, you nailed a very great problem that, yes, China is launching the cognitive warfare around us everywhere. And that's why I'm now also host the daily live streaming in Chinese YouTube broadcast to anti their cognitive warfare, even to Chinese people, not only to Americans. And without this misinformation, the pandemics choose can be easy to discover, right? But because those people launching the misinformation help China to cover up, it wasted so long time. And I want to add is the CIA deputy director has announced recently that China is U.S. existential threat, pose this kind of threat. So that tells you without Chinese communism, still, there will be sociopaths among the academic people and the experts. They want to do, always they want to do bad things, but they can't. But with communist China, like the magnet, they are attracted and they go to that side, they become the useful idiot, and then conducted the criminals with China government, and they can escape the accountability. So that's why we need to end the communist China first, and of course, meanwhile, clean your own home. That's my
house.
idea.
Well, I do. This has been very fascinating. I appreciate you both. And before the mics heated up, the cameras went on. Susan was congratulating Dr. Li-Meng for her improvement in her command of the English language. And Susan, I will posit for you the use of the word scumbag today was very appropriate. And that was a sign of how well. I thought she was going to say they aren't shit, but she said they're scumbags, and I thought, okay, that's even better.
That's good idiomatic.
She has really come along.
Yes.
Exactly. I thought, wow, okay, that's a sign to me that her language is really coming along. Thank you both. We'll talk to you again soon, I trust.
God bless.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Suzanne. And thank you, Dr. Baker.
You got it. And don't forget the book. Get the book. It is Dr. Clayton Baker. The book is The Medical Masquerade. It is really, I just really enjoyed it. I called Jeffrey Tucker afterward, or I think I called him, and I said, "This is good. This is really, really a historically significant document." Give me a second to check your chats here to see if there's anything. My computer cord unfortunately won't reach, so I have to turn way over here. I apologize. And anything, Susan? Anything on the Rumble rants? Anybody have any experiences there that we need to address?
The top of the list, Drew. We're going to get a PA is going to come over and hand deliver you one extension cord for your computer because you've been on this issue for 4 days.
Thank you. It's been a while.
I don't know where all our extension cords
We've been sort of away.
I think we have little Meicies in the house taking our extension cords.
What are you guys talking about? What are they talking about over on the rants? I can't quite follow it. They're not yelling at each other, which I like that. Do not comply. I think it's a good place to start. Truth heals. I'm not sure where you're going to look at, but I appreciate that.
I can't believe we continued it with the vaccine. You know what I mean? It's just
it's very complicated, very confusing.
Today I was I had to go to the dentist, and the little pharmacy that's down at the bottom of the elevator had this huge banner that said vaccines, and it named off every vaccine. Get them here, get them now. Yes. Well, it was like a circus act.
But adult vaccines, look, I like the shingles vaccine. I like the RSV vaccine. My elderly patients have been receiving the boosters, although most of them have stopped. No adverse events. Everybody's doing well.
It drew me in like, oh, maybe I should get my shingles right now. Like, it made me want to get a vaccine. It's the weirdest thing.
Well, look, here's the thing. All medical interventions are dangerous. All vaccines, medication,
COVID was on
surgeries, anesthesia, all super dangerous. We live in a time where we've lost complete track of that, which is a good news, bad news. Bad news is we don't take into account the risk reward of every interaction. I had one vaccine reaction, to be fair.
They don't have like a huge pamphlet on consent, like, informed consent. It just says, come on over here, Joe, get a vaccine. It was so weird. I just I was kind of appalled by it.
It's, the camps have gotten more and more extreme, and I don't like that. We should all be joining in the middle somewhere.
Didn't even say shingles on there, by the way.
All right. Well, RSV is good. And again, I had one COVID vax reaction. I had reported it to VAERS. They ignored me, and it was a serious reaction. Yeah. But she recovered from it and had no sequelae.
She was really old.
She was 100. Yeah, she was 99 when it happened.
So, gosh, she'll be dead anyways. Jeez.
They just didn't. They just ignored me. A complete ignoring. Wow. So something is up with the VAERS system, and it was a very serious reaction. No follow-up. All right, so let's see what's coming up. I believe we have Naomi Wolf in here tomorrow. She will scare us with more data about women and babies. Dr. Nicole Sapphire in on Thursday. She is, of course, the breast cancer specialist, radiologist, and Dr. Jordan Vaughn.
That's a good one, Nicole
It's a very
Sapphire.
good one. We got lots of great guests. Mark Shankiza coming back, Salty Cracker coming back. Just a lot of really interesting guests coming, and I hope today was interesting for you guys.
We're back.
Yeah, we're back.
We're going to do a lot of shows in June, and we'll be back. We're here in May, and then we'll also July. So we won't take too many vacations. So
who's coming in our house right now? That's kind of weird. Do you expect somebody?
I know. I heard a noise down there. Let me go find out. They're stealing my groceries.
Could be. I'm looking at you guys. Okay, well, listen. I think this was a very interesting conversation.
Love her. She's my favorite Chinese expert, and we can have Chinese experts on until the cows come home, but nobody has her information. And a lot of people, she's making all this up. No, she's been saying the same thing over and over and over.
It's refined. It's a little more focused. What she was saying this time, there's a little more detailed story. And it all kind of made sense.
No,
that's when I yelled for you about an hour ago. That's what had happened. The screen just was blank all of a sudden.
I was so worried she was going to go, actually, that didn't happen. After you said what she had said 5 years ago. Yeah. And what's happening with the screen, Caleb?
We're going to wrap
ghost.
up. Maybe
that's why the door slammed downstairs. We have a ghost in the house.
All right, we'll still find the ghost. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you tomorrow at 2:00. Naomi Wolf in the house. See you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.